Okay, so let's get right into this. We're going to talk about a single sound, a sound that completely changed the course of World War II and, honestly, redefined warfare forever. This is the story of how an empire, an entire military doctrine built on the idea of being invisible, was totally shattered by a weapon that nobody could see, but everyone could hear. Just try to imagine this for a second. You're sealed inside a steel tube, deep under the cold, dark Atlantic. You believe you are a ghost. You're completely invisible. And then you hear that. It's not the normal groan of the hull under pressure. It's not the hum of the electric motors. No, this is something alien, an artificial, metallic ping. For a 22-year-old midshipman like Herbert Werner, on his very first patrol, this was absolutely terrifying. The ocean, which was supposed to be their sanctuary, their hiding place, well, it wasn't hiding them anymore. In that single moment, the hunter realized he was now the hunted.
But to really truly grasp the shock of that ping, we've got to go back a bit. We have to understand a time when the U-boat wasn't the prey. It was the undisputed, invisible king of the deep. You know, for the first few years of the war, the German Kriegsmarine, their navy, they operated with this terrifying, almost absolute confidence.
And listen, this wasn't just a tactic they used. This was a core belief. It was practically a religion for these U-boat crews. They were trained with this absolute, unshakable certainty. Their instructors drilled it into them. The ocean is your shield. It hides you. It absorbs sound. Their own listening gear, their hydrophones, could easily pick up a ship on the surface. But a U-boat, running silent on electric motors, you might as well be a ghost. A radio operator named Wolfgang Hirschfeld wrote in his diary, simply, "We thought we were safe."
And this belief, this confidence, it led to just staggering success. I mean, look at this number. In March of 1943 alone, U-boats sank almost 700,000 tons of Allied shipping. Let me repeat that because it sounds crazy. 700,000 tons in 1 month. For the U-boat crews, this period was known as the happy time. They were just prowling the Atlantic like untouchable sharks and even had a chilling nickname for it, the American shooting season. Honestly, they were on the verge of cutting Britain's lifeline to America completely.
And this quote right here from one of Germany's top submarine aces, it just perfectly captures the attitude. It's not just confidence, it's almost arrogance, right? They genuinely believed the Allies were fighting a past war using old, outdated gear. They had absolutely no idea that a technological revolution was brewing in secret labs, a weapon that was about to turn their greatest strength, their silence, into their most fatal weakness.
See, the Allies had a secret weapon. It wasn't a bigger gun, it wasn't a faster ship. It was a sound wave. And it was about to turn the U-boat's biggest advantage into its greatest vulnerability.
The one thing the Germans just completely failed to take seriously was the idea that ships could actively hunt them with sound itself. The British had actually been working on this technology, which they called ASDIC, since the end of the First World War. It was the Americans who later gave it the name we all know today, Sonar.
And the principle behind it is, well, brilliantly simple. You send out a ping, a high-frequency pulse of sound. When that sound wave hits a solid object, like, say, the steel hull of a U-boat, it bounces back. It creates an echo. So by measuring the time it takes for that echo to return, you can figure out the distance. And since you know which direction you sent the sound, you get the bearing. And just like that, the ghost in the water now has a precise location.
Now here's the really interesting part. The early versions of this system were, frankly, full of flaws. And that's exactly why guys like Captain Schulcher were so confident. The system had a huge blind spot right underneath the ship. It couldn't tell you how deep the submarine was. And the operators, they had to be artists, really, trying to tell the difference between a U-boat and a whale or a school of fish or even weird layers of cold water called thermoclines. So clever U-boat commanders learned how to exploit all of this. They'd dive deep, get under those layers, and use the ocean itself to hide.
But here is where the tide starts to turn. Thanks to this really intense, unprecedented partnership between the British and the Americans, all of those flaws were systematically fixed. The Brits brought the core science over to the US, and then American industry just took over, mass-producing it, refining it, making it better at a mind-blowing speed. And it all came to a head in a single month that would forever be known in Germany as Black May.
And this slide right here, this chart, it shows the catastrophic shift better than any words I could say. Just look at these numbers. In the single month of May 1943, more U-boats were destroyed than in the entire year of 1941. Let that sink in for a moment.
The losses were so devastating that Admiral Donitz, the head of the U-boat force, had to order a retreat from the North Atlantic. It was over. The hunters had finally become the hunted. So here's the crucial point to understand. It wasn't just better sonar. It was a complete system that basically eliminated any chance for the U-boat to escape. They had new weapons, like the Hedgehog, that fired forward, so destroyers didn't have to sail over the sub and lose contact in that blind spot. But the most devastating change? The new Type 147 Aztec. It could now tell you the submarine's exact depth. There was nowhere left to run, nowhere left to hide.
And Werner's words again, you can just feel the terror. That pinging became a death sentence. It would follow them for hours on end. It was maddening. Veterans described it like a fingernail dragging on a chalkboard, just amplified 1,000 times. And because the sound traveled through the steel hull itself, you couldn't get away from it. And with every single ping, the men knew the hunters above were zeroing in, calculating their exact position in three-dimensional space and setting depth charges not as a guess, but with lethal precision.
The result of this was a casualty rate that's, well, it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. 75%, the highest of any military service in the entire war. 30,000 men died, trapped in what they grimly called iron coffins. The proud, confident warriors of 1941 became, by 1943, traumatized men sailing into what they knew was a near-certain death sentence. And it all started with that one single metallic ping.
So, okay, why does this cat-and-mouse game from 80 years ago still matter to us today? Well, because the echoes of that first ping are still shaping our world in ways you might not even realize. And this is where the story gets really interesting.
Before ASD-SIC, the most important thing about a submarine was its ability to dive and to attack. After ASD-SIC, the single most important quality became its ability to hide from sound. The entire focus of submarine design, of naval warfare, it just shifted overnight, permanently.
That one development kicked off a technological arms race between stealth and detection that is, believe it or not, still raging in every modern navy on the planet today. The revolutionary German Type 21 U-boat, with its rubber-coated hull and whisper-quiet engines, was a direct answer to sonar. You can trace its DNA to every submarine built after the war, from the Soviets to the first American nuclear boats. This constant back and forth, the quest to build a quieter sub and a more sensitive sonar, that is a direct, unbroken line that started right back in the Battle of the Atlantic.
You know, the ultimate lesson from those U-boat crews is that invisibility is always temporary. For them, the deep ocean was the perfect cloak, the ultimate hiding spot, until a simple sound wave stripped it all away. And that leaves us with a pretty critical question, doesn't it? What seems completely invisible to us right now, but won't be tomorrow? Whether we're talking about the depths of the ocean or the depths of cyberspace, the hunt for the unseen continues, and it's all driven by the memory of a single sound that ended an empire of silence.